Can't exactly hear what you're saying up here when I'm backstage, so I don't really know what you said about the other school up north. But I'm not guilty. I'm just a friend here among friends. So I want to talk about a concept that I learned after working in Africa for the last 12 years and go over some really basic facts that you don't really hear too often when people talk about Africa. So first of all, I learned that people are people everywhere, which is sort of a remarkably simple and stupid thing to say out loud. But when I send students to live and work in rural Africa for their summers, which I'll get into in a bit, the most meaningful phrase that sticks, that ends up on almost every single blog, is that people are people everywhere. Is that we are all fundamentally made of the same stuff, and we're motivated by the same things. And at the same time that we appreciate that, we need to also appreciate the idea that we shouldn't be defining people by what they lack. When you think about it, there's the rich world, the people who have and have and have. And then there's the poor world, the people who don't. To me, that's just fundamentally flawed because people are people everywhere, so it can't be possible that we should define more than 4 billion people on this earth by what they don't have. It just seems like we're starting on the wrong assumptions. So these are some lessons that students who join ThinkImpact in rural Africa for their summers learn over an 8-week period on our institute. Full immersion programs that are really designed to get college students and young professionals deep exposure to the realities, to experiencing daily life as a local in rural Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, or South Africa. So let's go to Africa. I want to tell you a couple fun facts about Africa because everybody likes to harp on the negative. Well, Africa is enormous. Did you know that you could fit the United States, China, India, France, Italy, Spain, Eastern Europe, all in Africa? And in that space live 1 billion people. 1 billion people who, if you go and you have a conversation after today, you will find someone say, oh, Africa, they're so poor, they're so slow, they're so backwards. And anybody who says that to me, I just sort of look at them and I'm like, you just don't know. You just don't know how incredibly diverse and rich and growing Africa really is. So much so that McKinsey has come out with a huge report that indicates that 221 million people will become new basic needs customers by 2015 in Africa alone. 221 million people. That's 250 million people who in the next couple of years are going to be buying toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap at larger and more fancy levels than ever before. We're looking at a remarkable opportunity in the world when we start to appreciate it. So this is a photo that I took on my very first visit to a rural village in Africa. This is a photo I took in 2001 when I was in the Mpumalanga region of South Africa. See, I was there because my family is originally from South Africa, and my cousin was having a wedding. So I went down so that I could really celebrate a totally unrelated thing to visiting a rural village. But we got this awesome opportunity to go on safari, right? We went to a game reserve near in the Sabi Sands area, which is next to Kruger National Park. And we were there, and we were with a man who looked at me and he said, Saul, you think you know South Africa, but I need to show you the other side of the fence. So I said, okay, well, whatever that means. Show me the other side of the fence. Well, sure enough, when you step from Sabi Sands Game Reserve, which is like the equivalent of Aspen for game reserves in the world, it really is like all ritzy and everybody's got their private plane and they're swooping in, they're seeing the lions. Well, in this case, Aspen is located adjacent to a former Bantustan, a homeland where black Africans were relegated to what could be called third-class citizenship in South Africa. They were put on land that was difficult to farm, limited access to water, and they were told to live there and that they had no other rights during apartheid. So I had this opportunity to really cross the fence and visit a village, and we could walk right over to the village. And I've done that many, many times. And of course, my heart broke. I saw poverty, what I thought was just completely unfair, right? Looking at, what they call little rondevals, little round mud huts, and seeing people living with no access to water or electricity. And when we visited a school, I saw that 80 kids were learning under trees. And so from that, I committed to raise $10,000 on the spot, having no money in my back pocket. I would raise the money and we could do something. Well, over the last 12 years of working across Africa, I have learned that throwing money at a problem is really not a solution. That's a feel-good option. We can do better. Everybody who's at a conference on alleviating poverty through entrepreneurship understands that we need to be more creative. We truly need to be entrepreneurial when we want to solve the world's problems. Nothing else ever has solved problems. And so I was pretty committed to building these schools, and I was really jazzed about the idea of raising money and raising awareness on the issues in Africa. So I did that for many years. And then in 2007, I started bringing students out to actually live and work in the village. At that time, it was a 4-week experience. And I started to see how the local community members interacted with our students, and it was pretty mind-blowing. And over the next 4 or 5 years, we started thinking, what could we do? What could we really do that would make the highest impact? We have so much to work with here. We really, really do have unbelievable resources. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about professors. I'm talking about access to information. I'm talking about newspapers every day. What can we do to make a bigger impact? And that's when I was turned on to the idea of social entrepreneurship. This notion that there are market-based solutions to poverty. And I was told I should get into that because that might be the key to the answer of what I'm trying to figure out, which is how can we actually leverage all of this world of opportunity to ultimately end or eliminate poverty? Well, it's not so easy. So the first lesson I learned when I was in rural Africa is I don't know much about rural Africa, right? 12 years there, I still don't know much. Context is king. You need to go around and ask the questions. You need to assume total ignorance and just have curiosity, because you don't really know what you're talking about when you're talking about people from a different culture, a different society. Now, that actually happens to be a pretty great thing, because we come in with all of our cultural assumptions, all of our ideas, all of our learned experiences and everything we've been conditioned to do. And then we go to another environment, and people end up just shocking us with their creativity because they just do things a little bit differently. If we bring those two notions together of our ideas and our culture with their ideas and their culture, and we merge them, that's where innovation comes from. Innovation is at the nexus of two radically different cultures. And those cultures have so much to offer. Too often we have the problem of oversimplifying the reality of the communities where we want to so-called help. We decide that we're going to go to Africa and we're going to build things for them and we're going to help them and we're going to make their lives better. But we don't understand their lives. It's not really clear how. And of course, when you come into a place with lots of resources, when you say, I'll bring you money, they're just going to ask for things that they can use with the money. So they're going to ask you for a lab. They're going to ask you for another classroom. They're going to ask you for a library. But that is based on very limited information about what actually works and what could be helpful. And so what we need to do is we need to learn what exists in these societies. So the challenge to everybody in this room is to go somewhere where you are way out of your comfort zone, where you are so far from anything you know that you have no option but to listen. And you have no option but to learn. Because you will find some great things. You will find that local assets exist. Did you know that palm trees are like the most unbelievable resource? You can do anything. You could create coconut syrup out of a palm tree. People get drunk on palm wine in Kenya where we work. The village members, students on our program, don't drink palm wine, of course. you will find that women have unbelievable skills. They're obviously delivering babies in that village. Now, I'm not comfortable delivering a baby. My sister just had a baby 2 days ago. I'm glad I wasn't involved with that process. But when I'm in rural Kenya and there's a woman giving birth in the hut next to me, which has happened, it's a local woman named Mama Teresia who's delivering the baby. They have those skills. Obviously, they have to do this all the time. They think about these issues. They also carry charcoal to the market every day. And when they do that, they're creating distribution channels. When you go to Africa and you see women carrying lots of charcoal on their head, and you think to yourself, oh, geez, it's so hard. They're so poor. They're carrying charcoal. You're missing the point. The point is that they have a route that they take, and that's how they make their money. And then they come back home either with a few goods from the market or empty-handed. We could be leveraging those channels if we start to see them as resources. There are resources everywhere. But everything is a little more complex than we think, too. Local context matters because all of the assumptions that we have about the way things work are based on basically what our founding fathers, our framers, did here in the United States. We really don't understand why there are chiefs anymore in Africa. Chiefs sounds like a throwback. These are really important structures that need to be understood before we start to make waves in communities. If I show up in a community and I'm talking to the chief and his 4 sub-chiefs, and I say, I'm going to build a lab, or I'm going to build a clinic, guess what happens? Everybody starts clamoring for access to that pot of gold. Politics at the local level shifts. I've just basically delivered a good that somebody's going to claim credit for. And what ends up happening is you mess with local structures. We need to learn to appreciate what exists so that we don't screw things up. And of course, we need to understand, with all of these consumers that are coming, that they like things too. They have preferences. Culture informs what we think is cool. My iPhone right here, I think this is cool because I'm a regular old yuppie white dude who thinks that this is cool. It turns out, if I give it to my friends in Ghana, they might not think it's that cool. They might be like, have you seen how cool the Android is? Have you really seen how cool that one is? This is cool, but that one, it's amazing. It's because it's informed by different culture. And by the way, that's a bad example because those are both from us. But when we start to design for people where they are, if we meet customers where they are, then we're really onto something. But the thing is, we need to realize that we are not this individual that can go and do things. I'm showing you a picture of a dance group from Kenya that I think is a powerful image because these women, yeah, they're partying right now and they're having a little welcome ceremony for a group of us. But those women serve on the local community-based organizations that really get things done. Those women run the water project groups that help to bring support for water projects in the rural village. They also are on the school committees that are trying, with very limited outside information or access to textbooks, they're trying to provide better schools. And I want to really encourage everybody here to think all the time that I alone cannot do jack. But with others in teams, we can do anything. Small teams make the world go round. People say money makes the world go round. No. Small teams working together, thinking through ideas, collaborating, that's what makes the world go round. And that's exactly the same in rural Africa. They have more community-based organizations in a village in Africa than I can even believe, more than maybe student groups on this campus. They have them in spades, huge numbers. And you know what? It's good, because that's how people get things done. And every person on a team matters. Every individual has different skills. When we work with a community member like Juma in rural Kenya, we find that he knows how to build things. So a rainwater catchment business that was started over the summer is real because he knows how to construct them and he can finance them through unique models. People have relationships that make financial models possible. We don't have those relationships. We need to work in teams with people who have the skills and the knowledge to make things happen at the local level. And so finally, I just want to say that you are sitting, what I would say, is at a very critical moment in history. When literally, as I talk, there's like a Twitter feed popping up. Everything is connected. The question is, are you going to be part of that? Are you going to be part of delivering information or building partnerships that actually eliminate this notion of poverty by leveraging the skills, ideas, and local cultures that exist in rural Africa? And you know, sometimes people like to bracket, they're the visionaries, and then there are the rest. I think that's not true. I think that anybody who takes a stance on what they think is possible is a visionary. If you sit in your chair and you decide, you know what, I don't think it's right that people don't have access to mobile phones, so I want to build a business that creates cheap mobile phones, you're a visionary. Boom. If you sit there and you're like, you know what, I don't think it's right that social workers are not gaining access to good education in rural Africa because social workers would help deal with a 14 million orphan problem in southern Africa. We could be doing something with that. Visionary. If you think I can do more tomorrow than I did today, you are a visionary. Take a stance, take a risk, and be willing to be wrong. It's going to require one thing, though. You're going to have a mind shift. Our program called the Institute in Africa is really about mind shift, getting students to understand that they don't lack anything either, and that the communities that they work with don't lack anything, and all they need to do is approach things with entrepreneurial curiosity. Now, once you embrace that idea, that entrepreneurial curiosity really can count, can lead to the big change, can leave a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs would say, then you're really onto something. And I'll end with a final quote, which is, ideas are powerful. Anything I just tossed up here, those are ideas. You might be moved a little bit. Ideas are powerful, but people make every moment high impact. Thank you.